Hi, I'm Anne Pollard, and this is the reading of my book, Cleo's Fabulous Adventures, The Realm of the Woods, Chapter 14, Lakshmi the Lion. Bacchus turned to Cleo. I hope you're feeling relaxed and refreshed now, Cleo, he said. She nodded in agreement and said, Yes, Bacchus. This was really helpful. I do feel refreshed and ready to move on to our next destination. Then let us proceed, said Bacchus. Bacchus and Cleo headed out of the woodlands onto a new path. As they walked, Cleo asked, Bacchus, Kalani mentioned that you can reach out to your guides during meditation. What did she mean by that? Bacchus answered, All humans have guides that help them along their journey. We talked about your higher self, remember, when we were with El Moria? Well, that's one of your guides, but you have many others. All the animals that we've met have an animal spirit that can guide you. The animals we've met have already taught you how to invoke those guides by being still and listening. But there are so many other guides. There's ancestral guides, those people that have lived before you, whether you were related to them or not. There are angel guides from the angelic realm. There are extra-dimensional guides who reside in other parts of the galaxies. There are dragons and unicorns, and you already met the fairies. All of them can be your guides. Most humans have a stronger connection to some than others, and so you'll resonate more with them, but they are all there and available to you when you ask. You can also consider me as your guide. Cleo was a little skeptical about all of this. She was willing to acknowledge the higher self and the animal spirit guides and even Bacchus and the fairies, but angels, aliens, and unicorns were beyond what she was willing to concede. Okay, Bacchus, you're getting into the woo-woo territory again, Cleo laughed. Bacchus smiled. Not to woo-woo worry, Cleo. There is more than enough time to explore any of the guides you would like to meet. Cleo chuckled to herself. Fewer and fewer trees lined the path as they continued walking. The temperature began to rise and it was getting quite hot. It felt dry and arid. The trees that began to emerge were covered in thorns. They were small with leathery-looking leaves, but the leaves were interwoven with the thorns that ran up and down every branch. Some of the trees were taller, with more clustered leaves, but they also had thorns on the branches. These thorns were shorter and closer to the branch and were spread out further. There were grasses and scrub brush on the ground. As they came closer to the thorny trees, Cleo could see the most beautiful birds perched in thorns. There were hundreds of them. Cleo asked Bacchus what they were. Bacchus said, Those are Fincher's lovebirds. They were the most beautiful birds that Cleo could remember seeing. Even though they were only about 6 inches tall, they made up for their small stature with an array of the most vibrant colors. Their beaks were scarlet red, and the feathers on their head went from red around their beak to a tangerine-colored face that was laced with yellow hues. They had a bright white ring around each eye. Their chest feathers were yellow, while their body feathers were bright green, and their wings were a deep jade. The birds were making quite the noise. Their calls were high-pitched and twittering, and they seemed to be endlessly calling back and forth to each other. Bacchus laughed. They can be quite loud and bold for such a small bird. Seems they have quite the courage. Cleo laughed and agreed. They were loud but strikingly beautiful. As they continued into the thorn forest, they eventually came upon an opening with fewer trees and more scrubby grass. As they entered the clearing, Bacchus stopped. Cleo followed his lead. They stood in the open clearing for a few minutes, and Cleo could sense something was coming. Bacchus smiled. She's using her intuition, he thought. That's a good sign. Then from the thorn forest, they saw a female lion approach them. She was regal and graceful and seemed to glide along the path. Behind her were 4 lion cubs. They were darting in and out of the path, and even though they stayed close together, they would wander here and there through the scrub brush. The cubs were laughing and jumping and talking to each other. When they saw Bacchus and Cleo, though, they stopped instantly. The mother lion looked back at them and smiled. She turned to Bacchus and in a soft, sweet growl said, "Bacchus, I am so pleased that you both got here. I hope you don't mind, but I need to keep my cubs close." Bacchus nodded in acknowledgement and said, "Hello, Lakshmi. I completely understand. We're happy to see the new additions to the pride. Cleo, this is Lakshmi." Cleo smiled at seeing the lion and her cubs and said, "Hello, Lakshmi. It's so nice to meet you. Your cubs are so sweet and cute." Lakshmi laughed. "Thank you, Cleo. It's my honor to meet you. Yes, the cubs are wonderful, if not a handful sometimes, but I'm grateful to be able to raise them. I feel I have great fortune to have four and to be able to protect them and nourish them. Sometimes it can be a dangerous place." Lakshmi turned back to the cubs and told them to settle down and rest while she spoke to Bacchus and Cleo. The cubs all lay down together and seemed content to rest for a while. Lakshmi turned back to Cleo. "Cleo," she said, "I hope that if it is your choice to raise a family one day, that you will be blessed with all of the children that you want." Cleo smiled and said, "I'm not sure if I will even get married, but much less raise a family, but thank you for your kind words." Lakshmi nodded and continued. "Cleo, you've already been through some great adventures today. I can sense your auric field getting stronger. You're learning to follow your heart, and that's a great thing in and of itself. As you have more adventures today, you will no doubt learn even more lessons, some perhaps more difficult than others. How do you feel so far?" Cleo thought for a minute and she said, "Yes, some of the lessons have already been difficult, but all of it's been fabulous. Bacchus is a great guide, and all the animals have taught me so much. I don't understand everything, but I do feel different." Bacchus smiled. Lakshmi said, "Yes, you are changing every second. Your cocoon is now open and you're finding your butterfly wings. I want you to know that what you're undertaking takes courage and determination. Lion Spirit can always support you when you need to draw on your courage. In fact, I think you have needed to do that several times already today, even before your journey started. Like this morning when you almost had your car accident, or in the office when you found out about the changes to your business. Those types of events in your life require your courage as well as your compassion. Do you feel like you had the courage you needed to address those events?" Cleo could feel her peace from the meditation session with Kalani begin dissolving away. The images of the morning events played through her head at lightning speed, and she surrendered to Lakshmi that perhaps she didn't have all of the courage that she needed. Lakshmi said, "Thank you for being honest with me and with yourself. That's a lesson that a lot of humans have not yet learned. So you should be proud of yourself for acknowledging that. Would you be willing to talk with me about how you felt when you found out the business that you manage is being sold?" "Yes, of course," said Cleo. "Good," replied Lakshmi. "What are you feeling about the situation?" "Well," said Cleo, "it makes me very uncomfortable to have so much responsibility placed on me to deliver everything in a short time frame." "I'm sure it does," said Lakshmi. "But is that what brings you fear?" "No, I guess not," said Cleo. "I'm more afraid that I'll lose my job. It happens a lot in my world, you know. New owners come in and don't recognize what people can do, and they think they can do it better with their people. Or they're trying to control costs for the new company and they end up firing people to save money." "And why does that make you afraid, Cleo?" asked Lakshmi. "Because," said Cleo, "I can barely afford things now. If I lose my job, I don't know what I would do or how I would support myself. And my brother is depending on me for money and schooling as well. I haven't been able to save much money, so I don't really have much to fall back on." "I understand," said Lakshmi. "I'm sure it can be an uncomfortable place to be. Let's step out for a minute and look at that from the audience. You know how to do that, right, Cleo?" "Oh, yes, I've done that several times today." Good, said Lakshmi. Now, can you see that from a higher perspective? Can you see that if you look at that from fear, you will be sending out the fear frequency to the world around you, and that is what will come back to you. You will see fear in your mirror, so that's what will be returned to you. You see, the universe, all that is, wants to give you what you are inside. It's that universal law that cannot be changed. Now see yourself on the stage from your audience seat as something different. Can you see yourself as the successful manager that you know you are? Can you see yourself as successful regardless of what happens with your business? Can you see yourself as abundant? Cleo thought for a moment and her stomach started getting tighter. I have to admit, said Cleo, that's a picture I can't really see. I understand, said Lakshmi. Let's look back a bit, shall we? Were you feeling the same way before you got the job you have now? Yes, said Cleo. I knew I had to find something that would support me and also have enough to help my brother. I was really lucky to find the job I got. Lakshmi smiled. I would offer, Cleo, that perhaps luck had nothing to do with it. You had an intention, and you made that intention a reality. You did that even before you knew what you know now. Realize how much more strength you have to draw on. You understand the universal laws. What you put out is what you get back. So you can change the fear and choose to release that. Use your courage and knowledge to replace the fear with the intention of a new job, of more prosperity, of more abundance. And do that from your heart space. Feel how good it feels to get that new job, to have money in your bank account. If you can't feel good about that, then find something that you do feel good about and think about that as you set your intention. It's the emotion that's the important part. The emotion generates the frequency. The frequency changes the energy. Then the energy transforms into what you intend into your reality. Remember, you're creating all the time, whether you're doing it consciously or unconsciously. So isn't it better to bring your courage and see yourself as you want to be, instead of being a victim to fear? Fear is not real. It is your subconscious mind trying to protect you. So you can see that for what it is and move past it. Remember your power, Cleo. You are stronger than you think. You are a part of universal love and consciousness. So your power is greater than you can even imagine right now. Hold the vision of what you want, not what you're afraid of. Feel the emotion behind what you want. That is the key. Cleo thought about what Lakshmi said. She understood more about seeing what you want and feeling that from her heart, but she still had fear of the unknown and what might happen. Lakshmi, I can understand what you're saying, but sometimes it's hard to release the fear, said Cleo. Yes, I know that's true for most humans. So look at it from the lion's perspective. We understand how powerful we are, and if we live in fear, our very existence could be in question. So draw our courage and strength from the earth, from inside of us, and then we act from there. We know our power to be great, and we rely on that power to survive and thrive. You can do the same thing, Cleo. See your power, take back your power, and stand in your power. Cleo was beginning to feel Lakshmi's words and felt a growing energy in her body. She was breathing deeper, standing taller, and felt a surge of power flow through her that she had not known before, or at least not ever acknowledged. I can feel it, shouted Cleo. As Cleo shouted, all the cubs jumped up and wondered what was happening. Lakshmi looked over at the cubs and laughed. They can feel your power as well, Cleo, said Lakshmi. See how they jumped up? They can feel the energy moving through you and around you. I think you've spread your butterfly wings just a bit further. Bacchus felt the energy too. He was so pleased to see Cleo take back her power. This has been a very important lesson, he thought. Bacchus spoke. Lakshmi, I think your courage is one of the most powerful lessons. Finding and holding your courage is so important. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. Lakshmi smiled and said, It's my honor and great privilege to remind us of the power within. To bring prosperity through courage is a fine lesson indeed. Cleo smiled and said, Thank you, Lakshmi, for your words. I do feel more empowered, and I can see a new way to look at my situation and what may come. I'm grateful for your kindness in sharing that with me. Lakshmi smiled and said, We are all here for you always, in every moment. You only need to ask for our help, and we will be there. Then Lakshmi turned and gathered up the cubs that were coming to life again. She nodded to them to follow her as they walked back towards the thorn forest. Her graceful strength carried her forward as the cubs started playing and running in and out of the path, but never too far from Mama. Lakshmi turned one last time back to Bacchus and Cleo and gave a slight bow of her head. Then she headed into the forest with the cubs close behind. Thank you for joining me. Have a fabulous day.